20% of all of humanity's oil is being squeezed in the most ruthless geographical narrowest channel on the planet. There is no room for circumvention, and no exceptions for any nation, not even the most powerful economic superpowers. From the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia to Iraq, all are placing their lifelines on an extremely thin line. It is a bottleneck where the survival of the world economy is determined by the cruel arrogance of nature. Welcome to the Strait of Hormuz, where the bloody machinations of mankind are turning the waters into a death arena. At its narrowest point, the strait is only 39 kilometers wide, equivalent to a mere 21 nautical miles at sea, a distance that, on land, you could easily drive across in less than 20 minutes. But on this treacherous surface of the water, those 39 kilometers are a death trap with no escape for the weak. The northern coastline, under Iran's absolute control, is not the usual tranquil, breezy, sandy beaches. It is a series of jagged, rugged mountain ranges, colossal natural rock walls concealing a chilling secret. Deep within the mountains lie dormant anti-ship missile launchers, awaiting their firing day. You might think that a supertanker weighing hundreds of thousands of tons could freely roam the vast ocean. But the ironic truth is that these colossal steel monsters are trapped in a suffocatingly narrow cage. The maritime traffic system here dictates strict lines that no captain is allowed to cross. The inbound lane is only 2 miles wide, and the outbound lane is also only 2 miles wide. Between these two lanes lies a thin, 2-mile-wide safety buffer zone, totaling just 6 miles for survival. For a supertanker with immense inertia, navigating this lane is like balancing on the edge of an abyss. The near-zero maneuverability makes them obvious prey, with not a millimeter to escape. And the hunters out there know this well. They don't rely on rocky mountains to conceal their intentions. Iran controls a chain of strategic islands, including Qeshm, Larak, and Abu Musa, deadly pieces on the geopolitical chessboard. Don't call them mere islands. Call them giant, static air defense fortresses that can never be sunk. Sophisticated missile systems are anchored right at the edge of shipping lanes, forming a deadly triangle. Their first tactic begins at Larak, a rocky outcrop rising from the sea but serving as an executioner. This island sits atop the choke point of the Strait of Hormuz, its shadow falling over tense international shipping lanes. The method of operation here is not long-range attack, but ruthless psychological manipulation at the closest possible distance. It's a form of death by force at a distance, where the victim can clearly see the cold, menacing gaze of their enemies surrounding them. Because Larak is located right at the top of the transit corridor, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's fast attack boats are always ready to launch at any moment. These boats can approach a slow-moving cargo ship in just a few minutes, giving the enemy no time to react. A few minutes about the time it takes to leisurely brew a morning coffee, but it could determine the fate of an entire ship. For the crews of these massive oil tankers, the time to react to this threat was 0. Larak enforced an absolute no-go zone, turning the surrounding waters into an invisible prison, trapping all hope of escape. The suppression process unfolded coldly, like a computer algorithm, beginning with the launch of drones into the air. These mechanical eyes hovered overhead, never blinking, monitoring the slightest movement of the oil tankers. Below the surface, speedboats tore through the waves, encircling the target in an extremely tight circle of death. They didn't need to fire immediately. The mere presence of their menacing muzzles was a death sentence. Any captain, whether in a panic or due to reckless folly, would simply order the engines restarted, or even attempt to move the ship just a short meter, and the order to fire would be given immediately. There would be no further warnings, no room for lengthy negotiations, only destructive volleys of gunfire. But remember, Larak Island is just the sharp blade at the throat of the world economy. If Larak is likened to a small but deadly dagger, then Qeshm Island is a sledgehammer with immense power. Qeshm is the largest island in the entire Persian Gulf, a sleeping giant with immense military potential. It's not just a remote military outpost, but the command center of the IRGC. Beneath its rugged and arid terrain lies a complex network of incredibly fortified underground bunkers, a labyrinth of secret underground bases, concealing highly mobile anti-ship missile launchers. Qeshm Island is designed for large-scale destruction, the birthplace of the P-15 Termit missile. Equipped to the teeth with drone bases and the most sophisticated surveillance radar stations of the Iranian military, Qeshm acts as an incredibly solid strategic anchor, holding together the entire dense coastal defense system. From the shadows of deep tunnels, mobile launchers can suddenly emerge to unleash a rain of fire. Any target that dares challenge their power will be incinerated before they can even figure out what's happening. After firing, they quickly disappear underground, vanishing completely from the sight of military satellites. And finally, further south, right on the doorstep of rival nations, lies Abu Musa Island. This is the forward strike point, never waiting for the enemy to approach before launching a counterattack. Abu Musa cast its enormous shadow far and wide, creating a zone of denial that penetrated deep into the heart of the Persian Gulf. The radar systems there were like sleepless eyes, constantly scanning the horizon for potential targets. They detected and tracked all Allied warships long before they entered the death zone. Abu Musa turned the entire surrounding area into an invisible minefield, where every move of the enemy was pre-calculated. How could they take down such a massive supertanker with only rudimentary and inexpensive combat vehicles? The Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps did not use brute force or expensive super warships to accomplish this. Instead, they employed a ruthless algorithm of swarm tactics, a dangerous asymmetrical attack strategy. From their camouflaged bases along the coast, 10 to 20 small speedboats simultaneously darted out onto the cold water. Moving at speeds of 50 to 70 knots, they were almost invisible to today's conventional maritime radar systems. A pack of mechanical wolves targeted their prey from all directions, creating a perfect, inescapable 3-6-0-degree encirclement. The encirclement was instantaneous, rendering the massive oil tanker completely helpless against the ferocious onslaught. As the distance narrowed, heavy machine guns and shoulder-fired missiles began firing at the weakest points. The first objective of the attack was not to sink the ship immediately, but to completely destroy its command center. They focused on blinding the ship by destroying its communication systems and critical radar transceivers. The captain and crew immediately lost control, falling into a state of utter panic amidst the incoming gunfire. The second target was the engine room, the power source for the hundreds of thousands of tons of steel floating on the sea. By destroying the engine system, the ship instantly became a lifeless mass of metal, frozen in the narrow, treacherous waters. The extreme chaos on deck was merely a veil, concealing a far more insidious and sophisticated threat. Below the surface, unmanned boats loaded with powerful explosives were silently hurtling towards their target at high speed. These devices knew no fear and never retreated. They were programmed to ram directly into the ship's hull. The target was the waterline, the Achilles heel of any floating structure, where even a small explosion could have catastrophic consequences. A cataclysmic explosion ripped through the ship's hull, sending tens of thousands of cubic meters of seawater flooding into its massive oil storage tanks. At the same time, the remaining speedboats proceeded to lay naval mines with grates directly in the ill-fated ship's trajectory. A deadly equation was established for the captain. Either stop and wait for the ship to sink, or move and be crushed by the mines. But those speedboats were only close-range weapons. The real threat came from the specters of the Cold War. Mobile launchers mounted on trucks began rolling out of fortified bunkers hidden deep within the Rocky Mountains. Noor and Gator coastal defense cruise missiles simultaneously pointed towards the sea, ready to receive firing orders from the command center. As soon as the propellant flame died out and the missile left the launch pad, the truck immediately retreated into the shadows to avoid counterattack. The technology inside these killers was a cruel irony of history, exemplified by the Soviet-made P-15 Termit missile. Its booster engine roared violently in the first few seconds, propelling this deadly mass of steel into the smoke-filled sky. When the second stage of propulsion activated, the analog radar system began scanning the sea surface for the target's massive signature. Once the target was locked, the armor-piercing warhead would hurtle down with unstoppable force from above. Just one precise angle of impact on the hull would tear apart or sink a supertanker instantly to the bottom of the sea. The pinnacle of this deadly patchwork lies in the SA-2 missile, originally designed to shoot down fighter jets. However, through sophisticated reverse engineering, it was transformed into a ship-killing weapon with a terrifying speed of up to Mach 3.5. 4,300 kilometers per hour, a figure enough to strike fear into any defense system due to its incredibly short duration. At a distance of 45 kilometers, the cargo ship's defenses had less than 40 short seconds to react. The death clock ticked, while the massive explosive charge hurtled towards its target, aiming to obliterate everything in its path. However, the vast capitalist system would never allow its economic lifeline to be so easily severed. The U.S. military brought a multi-billion-dollar defensive technology bubble to protect these vital shipping lanes. As Allied warships entered the Strait of Hormuz, they immediately deployed an incredibly dense, multi-layered security network. Specialized littoral combat ships and minesweepers continuously scanned the seabed to eliminate any potential threats from afar. In the air, Seahawk helicopters towed high-frequency sonar systems to clear minefields before the oil tankers passed by. To counter anti-ship missiles, the Aegis air defense system is activated as the technological heart of modern American destroyers. In the millisecond after an Iranian missile leaves its launch pad, the Aegis radar instantly tracks its trajectory. All target data immediately runs through the central computer system to calculate the optimal interception plan in a split second. SM-2 or SM-6 missiles tear through the air from vertical launch platforms, performing a direct kinetic collision in mid-air. The attacking projectile is blown to dust in a massive fireball, protecting the ships moving below. At the same time, Hellfire missiles from helicopters rain down on the formation of speedboats, crushing the swarm before they can encircle them. But defense always carries unpredictable risks, so the ultimate measure remains preemptive strikes. The skies over the Strait of Hormuz are constantly monitored by a squadron of stealth drones operating 24 hours a day. Every slightest movement along the Iranian coastline is meticulously tracked hourly by image analysis experts. If any mobile launch platform is detected rolling off the mountain, an order to destroy it is immediately issued from the command center. Fighter jets take off urgently. Tomahawk cruise missiles tear through the sky to incinerate the target before it can fire. And for the heavily fortified underground bunkers hidden deep within the Rocky Mountains, containing missile launch platforms that directly threaten the oil supply, the U.S. military has the most brutal physical response, the GBU-72, a 5,000-pound bunker-busting weapon. Containing over 2 tons of solid steel and high explosives, it possesses devastating destructive power. Equipped with the JDAM Precision Guidance Kit, the GBU-72 never explodes upon impact with the solid surface of the ground above. It uses its enormous kinetic energy to plummet straight down, piercing the Earth's crust and layers of solid rock at a terrifying speed. This bomb can penetrate 160 feet of natural rock, or 20 feet of extremely solid reinforced concrete. Only after completely penetrating and remaining inside the underground structure does the delayed action fuse begin to violently activate. The tremendous explosive pressure within a confined space will turn the entire underground base into a giant pressure grave. No weapon or vehicle beneath could remain intact after such a devastating impact. But what if the outer perimeter defenses are breached by a missile, or a suicide boat manages to penetrate the dense protection? Then, the countdown begins within the combat compartments of the destroyers on standby amidst enemy fire. A final layer of armor, a blazing metal barrier, is erected by the very bullets spinning at breakneck speed. The Phalanx CIWS system begins to speak, a close-range weapon designed to be the last line of defense for the ship's survival. The Phalanx is not simply a gun. It's a robotic beast programmed to destroy any target that intrudes into its restricted zone. Atop the Phalanx turret is a Ku-band search radar system, which rotates continuously to scan for any suspicious traces. Immediately below it is a Ku-band tracking radar, tasked with locking onto targets and automatically controlling firepower. The most ruthless part of this system is the 20mm Gatling gun, with a terrifying rate of fire of 4,500 rounds. 4,500 fiery rounds per minute, turning the space around the ship into an impenetrable wall of steel. When the Phalanx is activated, this automated machine switches to a deadly mode of slaughter with absolute precision, without human intervention. At a distance of 10 miles, the search radar detected a drone hurtling towards it in a dangerous suicide attempt. The system software immediately recognized this as an unnegotiable threat and prepared immediate destruction plans. At 8 kilometers, the fire control radar began tracking the target, calculating every flight path to ensure no miss. And when the target came within 2 miles, the gun began spewing a furious torrent of fire. The Phalanx would fire relentlessly until the target was torn to shreds and fell into the sea in flames. Anything that dared approach the ship was destroyed by tons of ammunition ejected from the endless ammunition drum. However, the Phalanx wasn't the only shield, because if the target persisted too long, the CRAM system would officially respond. PRAM is a deadly combination of radar, electro-optical systems, and a weapon far more intelligent than conventional ballistic missiles. It doesn't fire indiscriminately into the air, but carries an 11-tube launcher containing short-range interceptor missiles. The heart of the CRAM system is the RIM 116 missile, a smart projectile equipped with a highly sensitive infrared guidance system. It's designed to hunt targets flying close to the water's surface, such as the Soviet-era P-15 missiles skimming across the water. These anti-ship missiles often try to hide below the radar horizon, but they can't escape the infrared eye. Within 6 miles, when the CRAM system fires, the hit rate is 90%, a veritable death sentence. But the Battle of Hormuz wasn't just about explosions on the water, it was a weapons laboratory brimming with innovation. Iran has repurposed and upgraded outdated Cold War-era weapons into highly effective killing tools today. Swarm tactics are not just about overwhelming numbers, but also about completely overwhelming the enemy's cognitive abilities. Even a US destroyer, with the world's most powerful radar system, faces the limitations of its computer's data processing capabilities. When the sky and sea are simultaneously filled with dozens of different attack signals from multiple directions and altitudes, the Aegis system is forced to make life-or-death decisions in a matter of milliseconds to protect the entire fleet. The first phase of the attack usually involves launching a large number of inexpensive drones to saturate the enemy's defenses. The goal is to force the opponent to waste expensive interceptor missiles on low-value decoy targets. The second phase, while the defenses are busy, involves launching P-15 anti-ship missiles from hidden, inconspicuous angles. And finally, the real knockout blow was delivered by modified SA-2 missiles hurtling down at Mach 3.5. The combination of speed, numbers, and deception transformed the Strait of Hormuz into America's most difficult death trap. The 10-hour-long attacks in the Red Sea at the end of 2023 are a testament to this. These were not merely military actions, but also devastating psychological blows to global trade routes. Even protected by the most powerful fleet, oil tankers remain slow and incredibly vulnerable prey. That is the greatest paradox here. A trillion-dollar economic superpower is being threatened by small boats. The most expensive defense system on the planet is facing the agility of guerrilla warfare at sea. High-tech, multi-billion-dollar steel structures can be breached by a dilapidated piece of equipment from the Soviet era. In the Strait of Hormuz, power is measured not only by destructive force, but also by the ability to control the chaos one creates. The challenger to the system is using the very inefficiency of the system to create deadly blind spots in its defenses. This strait will forever be a reminder of the fragility of the global economy in the face of the guns of greed. A small mistake, a split-second misjudgment, can lead to an irreversible chain reaction of collapse. Because here, amidst the waves and smoke, life is merely a fragile illusion awaiting its moment of extinction.